This is Internet Marketing.
Hello and welcome to the Internet Marketing Podcast brought to you by Site Visibility. I'm your host, Scott .colenutt, and with me today is Paul Cowan, CMO of FreshBooks. And we're going to be discussing the intersection between advertising and product. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast and talk about this topic. It's an area for me, Paul, that's really interesting. I love product management, product design. I'm just a software geek and I experiment all the time. And of course, I love marketing and advertising too. And this is the world that you come from.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to be here to talk a little bit about it.
So would you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners and discuss anything that's happening at FreshBooks right now and your role at FreshBooks?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at FreshBooks. I've been with the company for about a year and a half now. And for those who don't know, so FreshBooks, it's a cloud accounting platform. So we are in that exciting world of accounting software. And our focus is really around helping small business owners manage their books and their business. So, people might be familiar with other folks like QuickBooks or Xero or Sage, and really kind of the difference between us and other folks is that we focused on the owner. Other platforms have really built primarily for accountants. So, ours is really focused on helping manage the day-to-day problems that an owner might face and keep them close to their books instead of having to rely on other folks to do it for them.
And can you describe your role in the business? How do you work? How do you bring marketing and product together at FreshBooks?
Yeah, for sure. So, the role of any CMO, I see as being kind of, I have three real jobs to do. One is being, first and foremost focused on the customer and just making sure that we're customer obsessed in everything that we do and just in that inner relationship with product that we're always bringing that voice of the customer, whether it's in a segment or market lens, back into the product group to help kind of drive that roadmap. My other roles are around building teams and just making sure that we build the appropriate teams to have the appropriate types of structures that we're able to work with our product organization so that marketing and product are lockstep in terms of understanding what we need to do and when, so that when we're building our go-to-markets and taking new product to market, that we're able to do it. And the other side is around helping tell the truth. So looking at the data and being able to understand what's actually happening in the business and the product with our customers and how they're evolving and changing with our product so that we can help provide that roadmap and look to the future as to what we should be doing, not only just 12 months from now, but of course 5 years down the road as well.
And this integration of product and marketing, as I alluded to at the beginning there, is something that I've got some notes in front of me about your career today. And it's always in that middle ground, isn't it, between product and marketing? So I've got here Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Senior Vice President of Strategy and Clients, Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder, and again, CMO at the moment. And I'm interested to know, as a starting point for the conversation today, how the intersection of marketing and product for you, whether you're creating something yourself or you're going into a company, do you think of marketing from the outset? Is that one of the things that you look at first, or do you look at product?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'm a marketer. I've grown up being a marketer, but I think everything, the whole approach that I've already taken to whether you call it brand building or company building is really around building experiences first. Mm-hmm. And all great companies that have been able to kind of experience any kind of real explosive growth have done so when they've made something and they've made experiences that create, whether you call it virality or something else, something that's going to be magnetic outside of marketing or pushing messaging out. I've been on the other side of the equation. When I was in telco, I was in the wireless category, and we just spent gobs of money to try to get people to buy cell phones. And, like anybody who's experienced, in any country you're in, carriers spend a ton of cash trying to get you in to buy a phone. Where I think what I've really kind of looked at my career in the last little while of doing is to really build those experiences first. So, whether I was in the toy industry, it was if you created an amazing product, whether it was a TV show. I was at a company called Spin Master, and we created a show called Paw Patrol. And if you have kids probably in the 3 to 5 year old bracket, you'd know what it is. But it ballooned and created this massive snowball effect of demand for those products that we then eventually started bringing to market. And then I think in the software space, it's really about understanding what are those experiences that you can create, those moments within your software that really create these unique experiences that are unlike other bits of software out there as well. I think really kind of dialing in and understanding customer pain points, all those types of things help you do that and create those kind of bits of magnetism within your product. And, at the end of it all, sure, I'm a marketer. I like to be an efficient marketer. Marketers are inherently fairly lazy. We like to do the least amount of work for the most amount of return. So if the product is inherently magnetic itself and people come there just for that, then we don't have to do a lot of additional work to help to drive demand and all that kind of stuff.
And there was something that you touched on that I knew I wanted to ask you today anyway. And so I'm going to skip forward to a part of the conversation that I was really interested in is you talked about building marketing into the product, essentially. And I'm really curious to know about any examples that you've seen. So whether that's that you've been a part of or that you've just seen out in the wild that you just love as examples for this podcast.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of one of the hardest things to do is to build marketing into your product. I think, when I was at Shutterstock, we did some great things where, a lot of people would come in and Shutterstock, of course, is images and images and videos and music and also kind of in the stock realm. And so discovery is really hard. So building great recommendation engines and things of that effect, or being able to codify your brand guidelines and then be able to only see images that would be in association with your brand. Those are all things that were built into that product. And it's marketing because it's always just revealing more stuff, that more content and more product that you can actually purchase from the company as well. So things like that are great examples. I think personally, the things that I've experienced lately, so I bought a new TV. So I bought an LG OLED TV because we got an Xbox over the holidays. And so it was kind of interesting. I just bought it because it was like one of the best rated ones, but I've then subsequently bought another because they had built in a bunch of features like IPTV. So I've cut the cord. I have no cable at home. I have an over-the-air antenna, and then we just use streaming services, and it opened up like this whole like universe of 400 channels, which I've got. I'm like, oh great. I'm like, I don't use many of them at all. If I think I use one, but it's like great. And so that's like kind of that viral nature of something that I've gone and told other people. It's like, oh, if you're going to get one, just buy one of these because you get all this other stuff with it. And then similarly, like another area in that I find is like amazing marketing that's built into product is this whole category of games like Fortnite and Roblox and how they built this whole economy around digital personalization. And just, it was recently one of my neighbor's son's birthday. And I think he ended up getting like, everybody got him $25 gift cards for Robux. and it's just, then it's like pictures on Instagram, all this stuff, like happy kid being able to go buy things in Roblox. So it's, I think those are other great areas of amazing ways to build economies and do great product marketing within product.
It's funny when you said you bought a new TV and had an Xbox. I nearly congratulated you. It feels it feels like a new TV is such a big moment that I just feel like congrats. You're going to really enjoy that. That's going to be quite fun.
Well, just getting the Xbox in December was the feat in itself. So it was a lot of Twitter notifications and hanging out at 2 a.m. with other folks trying to get the actual machine. So it was challenging.
And it's interesting you mentioned Roblox as well. It's Roblox, not Roblox, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I've only heard of it, and it's kind of this phenomenon that I'm not too aware of. I can see that it's growing; everyone's talking about it, but I don't know so much about how that product was grown and much about their marketing. Is there anything that you've seen that they do that you really, really like?
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I only see because I see my kids and they use it. So I think like these everything's built. All of these kinds of brands are built off of like the virality and the need from kids. And what I think is the interesting piece of all this is just how they've built like the sustainability. So Roblox in particular, the games within the game. So it's not just one game. There's multiple things that you can do, and so they're continually adding to it. Similar to Fortnite, how they'll continually launch new seasons, and they've just been able to take what is traditionally looked at gaming in itself is just like what was like a linear process and then went into like a community kind of thing, has now kind of expanded into an ongoing entertainment platform where you can host events or they can launch movies and do so many other things within their platforms that they've become like an extension of what kids do in their life as opposed to just being an outlet for entertainment.
There's an interesting connection that I'm making as you're talking, and I think about, so I've played Fortnite. I'm a Fortnite. I don't play it so much at the moment anymore, but I was kind of really into it towards the beginning, and I think about how they roll out new features and about how they roll out new features, new products within the game, I guess you might call it, and how they bring the audience along for that journey. I'm thinking the way it works is that they provide an advanced glimpse into the future about what they're working on. You always kind of get those teasers about what's being launched and when. You then have the whole pre-order process that you go through where they throw bonuses in and offers in for that. Mm-hmm. And then they have these big launch events. And as I'm thinking about it, and as you're talking about the gaming world a little bit more, I'm thinking about how that maps to SaaS products.
Yeah.
And my question is, well, do you think there is a natural mapping of what we've just talked about there over to SaaS products, and can SaaS products look at things in that way to make their marketing more effective, so bring their audience along for the journey for like new feature rollouts and for the future of the SaaS product itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just when you come at any kind of product build, we've gone through this kind of consumerification of enterprise software, like as companies like Slack, grew at a grassroots level in terms of bringing chat and community-based products into the enterprise. We keep having to expand how we look at other types of platforms and what we can learn from those platforms and bring them into our product. So, I said at the beginning, I'm in the world of accounting software. Nobody really sees that as being really that exciting at all. But there's a huge amount of excitement around it because, today we're giving people the ability to send invoices and get those invoices paid and, do time tracking and track their mileage and all of that kind of stuff. None of that seems like that interesting. But then at the core of it, we're helping drive someone's business forward. So, we are getting all of their data on like their invoices and how they're billing their clients. And then we're getting all of their expense data and all of these kinds of things. So there's so many different places we can go with having all of this information, whether we're telling people how much they should be billing based on where they live and the types of services that they're providing, or if we tell them here's what they should be spending and they're on average based on the size of their company or whatever, if from a mobile phone or from an internet plan standpoint. There's like the fundamental like nature of small businesses that they like to network and grow their business. So we could be creating marketplaces in terms of helping them kind of help build and connect with each other. So there's so many different places that we can go in terms of just building a piece of software that does this utility for them by looking at all of these different categories and seeing how they're doing all of these different things to help build community or to create new experiences or to just like create these different types of ways to bring people in and engage them on an ongoing basis.
Interesting. That leads nicely into something that I'm really curious about is how it currently works at FreshBooks, and then more generally about feature development and product development in SaaS companies in particular. And so just as a starting point, I'm interested to know quite broadly, what do you think that marketing teams can learn from product teams? And then on the flip side, what do you think product teams can learn most from marketing teams?
Yeah, I think they both operate fairly differently, and I'll generalize here because like different product teams behave differently, and different marketing teams behave differently. But what I find to be kind of some of the consistent patterns is like product is amazing at like process design and management and working in sprints and shipping items on a week in and out basis that are all working towards a bigger rock or with a broader picture in mind in terms of the things that they're trying to work towards. And marketers on the other side are fairly focused on delivering against the numbers. So whether it's revenue, whether it's customer engagement or mitigating churn, they're really focused on how they're driving against a revenue target with like customer motivations in mind. So one of the things that marketers often lose sight of is like, they're chasing the day-to-day revenue carrot, and trying to deliver on that number, where they sometimes lose sight of the longer term kind of 1 year, 2 year type of thing that they're working towards, and bringing kind of more of that like iterative, agile approach to delivering against marketing with that broader context in mind. So I think there's like an interesting way to help bring some of those processes and rituals that product is great at into a marketing organization. And similarly, what I've seen is that, and this is not universal across all product places, but what I find is that product organizations sometimes lose the customer motivation and understanding at that emotional level on what they're trying to achieve. So being able to bring that back into the product team and having that kind of a bit more of that customer obsession is one of those key things, and not just about kind of like achieving that job or doing that job that they need to do, but really more around that, what is the emotional driver behind what they're trying to feel like and going through the motions as well.
Do you have separate product and marketing teams at FreshBooks?
Yeah, so we have a fairly large product team. I've got a product marketing team that it did actually report into product before I was in the organization, and then we brought it under marketing as well. And no real reason other than saying, hey, let's bring the product marketing team over here. We work quite hand in hand with our product team, and in terms of on a month in and month out and on a quarterly basis to identify like what should our roadmap be and how do we work together to achieve that. So we work very well with each other. I think our product marketing team's been like great at, when they're in product, they lean one way, and what we've tried to do with them now is really just make them the kind of that central point for understanding the customer and what we need to do to help grow our customer from a segment standpoint, from a market standpoint, and going deep into the customer needs to be able to then work with the product team to help map out what needs to happen next to be able to either grow penetration within an existing customer, win a new type of customer, or enter a different market.
And it's interesting that you use the phrase product marketing team and product marketing in general, because I want to know your opinion on the critical skills that are needed to be a product marketing manager as opposed to just a more general marketing manager. So the difference between the two roles. But maybe a way to frame this that might help you is, let's say there's a marketing manager out there that's listening to this podcast, but they don't specify in product, but that's really their goal. What do you think they can add to their skill set or their repertoire? What do you think they should focus on to become a product marketing manager in the future?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. So our head of product marketing, we were talking about, because we were staffing up within the department, we were talking about what makes a great product marketing manager and who are the type of people we were wanting to get. And she kind of termed it up the right way. She's like, I just need smart people who understand marketing, and then they could be a good product marketing manager. And I think it's true, because the product marketing manager is a fairly broad or horizontal role. It does different things in different organizations, but I think at the core of it, it's really about being that critical link to the customer and then understanding the product and understanding usage. So I think that, some of the things that they need to be really dialed into is data and understanding like the different sources that they need to get to be able to both understand like the external kind of factors that would be influencing a customer, then plus what's actually happening within a product. So just being comfortable with that, I think is an absolute critical thing. I think one of the other like big pieces that I look for in hiring anybody in product marketing is an understanding and an empathy about the customer. Some of the best product marketers that I've worked with are folks who have sat in the shoes of the customer. So, if you're building, when I was at Shutterstock, it was fairly easy because we were, a bunch of marketers who were marketing to marketers. So we all understood all the personas. We had everybody who we were trying to target working at the company. So it was one of the easiest things for us to understand. It's different at FreshBooks. We target the SMB audience, and that's a very, very wide and diverse group of customers. And so, what is great is when we have people who have a lived experience. So if we have folks who have either started a business or managed a business or owned a business, those are all amazing traits to have. Of course, it's very hard to find. But sometimes we'll work with folks who may have come from a family who's been entrepreneurs, and they just understand some of the trials and tribulations and challenges that people have had as they've gone through the motions of running a business.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you're talking, there's a lot that you're explaining about good product marketing and good product marketing managers, which would suggest to me that you see a lot of beneficial skills as being in the area of observation, in terms of observing your customers, meeting their expectations, understanding their needs. It's the more emotional side of marketing. And as I'm thinking that through and as you're talking, I'm wondering what technical skills do you think are needed, if at all, and how has that changed over the years that you've been in these different roles? So do you think if there are any technical skills, what do you think
Yeah.
they are? And has it become more or less important over time?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's going to be some obvious skills that they're going to need to have. Like, I think that what we lean to and the folks within our product marketing organization do is much more technical analysis of usage within products, or if we're building out a different, like a feature set that we'd like to build, they might need to be going deeper into the actual business casing around that. So from a technical standpoint, I would say that they need to really be able to do is to build business plans and to be able to have the capabilities of being able to make a bunch of assumptions and know that a bunch of them are going to be wrong, but be able to show how a product, a feature, a group of feature sets might be able to help drive additional revenue into the organization. So it's being able to have those skills to be able to take those different types of needs or jobs to be done or pain points or whatever they may be, and then translate them into an actual business case so that the organization can be able to decide whether or not we want to invest in a set of features that we believe is going to help grow the business over time.
That's interesting. And actually, that's a really nice transition into another area which I wanted to talk about. When I think about a company like FreshBooks and even Shutterstock and some of the other companies, these are big companies that have lots of different departments sometimes, but also that have lots of different product features. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've seen marketers at SaaS companies struggle with in the past is, should they target broadly? So should they target a broad audience and look at competitors and look at their industry that way? Or should they get more granular and undertake advertising targeting based on specific product features? Is that question clear to you? I'm kind of visualize it as I'm talking. So should you have segmented plans, marketing plans for each product feature, or do you recommend targeting more broadly?
Yeah, I would give you a very solid "it depends." So I think the main thing to do is to try as much as you possibly can. This is actually where it gets interesting from a marketing deployment standpoint. So one of the things that I think marketers are very bad at is having a regimented way of shipping ads that help understand what messaging drives demand. So one thing I did when I was at Shutterstock was we had a 2-week sprint cycle around a bunch of ads that we would put mainly into channels like Facebook, and we use that as like our barometer to understand what messaging got the best type of response. And so we would try, horizontal messaging, verticalized messaging, feature-based messaging. We would then play with the different types of imagery that we'd be putting in. And so, in those 2-week sprints, we would just basically come up with hypotheses on the Monday and then brief in the creative team and pump out a bunch of ideas. And then, basically spend the second week to be able to put them all together and ship. And then just kept that cadence going. And those are the things that kind of give you that understanding of like, should you go broad? Should you go feature specific? I think a lot of it also just depends on the behaviors of customers. So, whether it's doing your research around SEM or SEO and understanding how deep people are going into different features across your product, where are the areas that would hunt best, and then building the appropriate content to be able to hook people in off of those. So, we definitely at FreshBooks do a lot of feature-based advertising, in particular in the SEM space, and then we use other areas and other media like YouTube and social channels and things like to that effect to help tell that kind of broader, more horizontal-based story, or the more emotional story as well.
And I'm also curious to know whether that's an approach that you take either at FreshBooks or whether you have in the past before you even choose to develop a product feature. So have you ever used advertising to validate a product feature idea? And is that something you see? Have you ever seen?
Yeah. So I would say that larger companies don't do it as much. So which is kind of interesting because they should. I've definitely done it. So it was years ago. A friend of mine he had a company that he ultimately sold, and he was making he had a crowdsourced network that would produce content for brands. And so most of it was just static images because he wanted to feed them into social channels. And he had a structure and system and big contributor network build out that helped do all this. And so 2 years, or he'd been doing it for 4 years, working great, good product market fit, lots of customer demand. And so when I was chatting with him, I'm like, why aren't you expanding into other stuff like video? I'm like, video's huge and everybody's trying to do it and it's hard. So why don't you go and do it? And he was like very opposed to it. And so I then went and bought a domain, bought a bunch of ads or made a bunch of ads and then put them into Facebook and did a lead gen campaign to see if I could generate any kind of interest. And so I took it back to him and said, see, look at that. For over a month, I got like over 500 leads. You should definitely be doing this because there's interest in it. And so I think things like that are a great way to just kind of like test your way into demand and test your way into whether or not there's actually any kind of like interest. And you could do it like whether it's under a company umbrella or not under a company umbrella. I think there's lots of ways to just be able to understand if there's any kind of real world demand for specific types of products.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It ties in with the point earlier that you were talking about advocacy. So if you start to market product features and gauge the demand before you even launch the thing, you give yourself the chance to build up a potential audience of people that are interested or that become advocates of that feature or of that product before it even launches. So I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know, so having been in the SaaS space right now, but having been in the SaaS space previously, there's this area where I think there's an expectation from customers about things that they want from SaaS products. And if those SaaS products don't have those things, don't have those features, that could have an impact on reputation, leading to poor reviews, which can then impact marketing. So I'm curious to know for you, what are some non-negotiable features that you think all SaaS products these days should have? What are customers, in your experience, expecting now more than ever?
Yeah, I think it's really different, I think, category by category. I would say that there's a couple things that should just be that they should be in all SaaS products. Is the first thing is really just like a great API. So I think right now, the way the world's shifting is that every platform wants to be the platform of platforms. So if you're able to be able to, one, create enough value in your product, then if you can write into more platforms and create the experiences that people are looking for within a bunch of other platforms, then that's like a great way to just continually bring people into your product. Just make sure you're kind of hunting where they are currently hanging out and not expect your platform to be the center of their universe. So I think APIs are pretty much like the main thing that people need to be focusing on. The other side is like, it may sound a little odd, but it's like, I think it's like really focusing on what's like uniquely your thing. So there's lots of folks that are just out there and are chasing after stuff, but are not creating any real newness within their category. So I think what companies have to really understand as they're building out their products is like, what's the thing that you're really good at that's unlike anyone else in the category? And in our space, there's lots and lots of folks who are out there building like invoicing and payments products that are fine for everybody. But there's a new set of competitors coming in every other day that's doing this. And so I think as the market just gets kind of cluttered with all these different tools, it's a lot of them aren't even thinking about like, what is it that they're doing? What's the problem that they're solving better than anybody else is today, as opposed to just like identifying that people are doing something and chasing a solution. So I think people really need to kind of take that step back and be like, and understand what is the product and how are they creating a way better product market fit than anybody else in their category and the unique problem that they're actually solving.
I'm thinking about, in my experience, I've never been fully in the product space, but knowing a little bit about development, a little bit about software development, and I've seen that the entry into launching a product over time has become easier, which means that, as you've just said, the market is usually saturated. In some markets in particular, the market is saturated by lots of solutions to problems. But it's the companies that go beyond that and think about the experience as well as the solution that are really going to succeed. Is that a fair way to summarize what you've just said?
Yeah, 100%. So even if you think about the small business space that I'm in. Everybody's out solving a specific kind of problem as it relates to a workflow. And if you're only looking at workflows, then you're not really thinking of the core challenges that an owner will face. And having been a small business owner a couple times in my career, it's like, yeah, great. You might need to get that solution for that specific type of pain point that you're looking to solve for. But the real problem I'm trying to solve for is like growth. Or I'm trying to solve for like how do I increase like the revenue on from each of my clients or diversify my client set. And everybody's out there trying to send a better invoice, and that's not the pain point. So I think like backing it up to go like, how can we actually, within our product, yeah, they need to send an invoice, but the problem they're trying to solve for is growth. So how do we make sure that they can generate more revenue? How can we make sure that they can understand their cash flow better than anybody else, or figure out how to manage their books better so they can actually, not spend as much money? And so I think that's where we're always trying to like back it up to be like, well, what's the real kind of problem that the business is having from a client standpoint, as opposed to just like thinking about like what's that specific type of problem or pain that they're having with that feature.
To close out today's podcast, I'm curious to know, just on that last note, are there any products or services? I'm going to take FreshBooks as a given because you work there and so you're thinking about this stuff. But are there any products or services beyond FreshBooks that you just do an excellent job of giving you a solution as a customer, but then going beyond that to give you a really joyful experience?
Yeah, joyful is a hard one to get at, but I think joyful experiences and really enjoyable experiences are tough, but ones that I use all the time. So first, like when I think of like what I do every day, the first thing I go into every single day is Looker, and so that's like our place where we go and do all of our reporting. And the piece of that, which I just enjoy, is the ability to bring together all of the different data sources that we have across the company, whether they're in databases, whether they're in Salesforce, in GA, in flat files on Google Drive, and be able to just harmonize that. And that's just like one of the biggest pain points that I've always had at every single company, is a consistent view of the world, having one source of truth that everybody in the organization can look at. And then we eliminate any conversation around data integrity. And we all just know, even if it's wrong, at least we're all looking at the same wrong dashboard, and we can have the argument over the facts that are presented there. But that's like a tool that we use, or a tool that I've come to really appreciate over the past few years. I'd say another one that I use quite often is Trello, and I know that it's fairly popular. And what I just appreciate with Trello is the ability to collaborate within it. So being able to like tag and track and put other people onto cards. So when I need to have my like train of thought that I'm going to just be like dumping in and creating cards against, like whether they're conversations that I'm having with people, or whether they're against like specific actions or items that we're trying to track against, I can at least be able to have that place and communicate people in a fairly real time basis. So two tools that I really enjoy.
It's brilliant. It's funny, isn't it? When you ask questions like that, and when you think about the things that make your life easier, it's sometimes you take it for granted. They're there every day, and that's a good sign of a product. Is if sometimes you're struggling to remember, it's because you log in and it's become habit to use them every single day. I feel the same way about Trello. Trello is a product I use most days, and yet, if someone was to ask me for my favorite products that give me a great experience, it might not be top of mind for me because it's become so ingrained in my daily habit that I don't think of it as anything new.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see, because they are owned by Atlassian now.
Yeah.
And just to see how because they haven't really changed the product very much. And I'm just interested in seeing how that gets like kind of brought into the whole world of Confluence and Jira, and if there is anything that's done specifically with that product.
I'll have to watch this space, maybe try and get them on the podcast. That'll be my goal. See if I can get any inside info for you. Hey, this episode's been really interesting to explore these intersections between product and marketing. And if people want to learn more about you, your experience, your history, what you're doing at FreshBooks, where can they find you?
Yeah, for sure. Easiest place is on LinkedIn. I'm just Paul K. Cowan, or they can just Google Cowan PKC, Cowan PKC, and then all my socials and everywhere will show up there.
Brilliant. So those links will be in the show notes. For now, Paul, I just say thanks again for your time today. And this has been the Internet Marketing Podcast. Thanks for your time, Paul.
Thank you.